Greetings, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Digging Deeper. Glad we could finally get back together. It's been a couple weeks. Lots been happening in my life, not for the better. My computer crashed a couple weeks ago. Finally got it up this week. Thanks to my oldest son, Derek. Got thrown off of Facebook permanently. So had to start up an Instagram account. So you can follow me on my personal page, Brian Penrod 61, or for more of my ministry content, go to Digging for the Truth. And I'm going to try to be doing daily or every other day pop-up videos with little messages on it, posting YouTube messages like this on there once a week. That's going to be my main ministry page. Work's been hectic the last couple weeks, so between all that stuff, it's just been a mess. But today I want to get into a follow-up of my message a couple weeks ago where I was talking about Peter and him possibly, and how the Catholic Church looks at him as the Pope. We're going to talk a little bit or a lot of bit about that today and give you my opinion on that. I posted a video earlier today on Halloween and my opinion of that. So that if you want to look into that. But today I want to talk about Peter. But before we get into Peter, we got to do a little bit of digging, which is the name of this podcast, Digging Deeper, Digging for the Truth. So we're going to dig into a book that is not in our Bible, the Book of Enoch. For those of you not familiar with the Book of Enoch, the Book of Enoch was discovered in 1947 as part of the Dead Sea Scrolls in the Middle East. It was discovered in some clay pots along with other books that are in the Bible, the Psalms, books from the minor prophets. The Book of Enoch is not listed as part of the Bible because many scholars do not feel that it was written by Enoch, that it was not part, it did not follow the correct procedures to be introduced into the Bible at the time. But it was known at the time that the Bible was written. I'm hoping you're following me with this. There are four books within the Book of Enoch. Books 2, 3, and 4 are fictional. They were written way after Book 1. Books 2, 3, and 4 are, if you read them, which I have, you can tell they are not written at the same time as Book 1. Book 1 has the same reading flow as the books of the Old Testament. They use the same verbiage, the same reading patterns, the same writing patterns, the same languages. Books 2, 3, and 4 just do not fit in. It's like comparing Old English with modern fiction. That's how different they are. They just don't gel together. So you can tell by reading them that books 2, 3, and 4 are later works that shouldn't even be compared to Book 1. Book 1 is a summary of Genesis chapter 6, verses 1 through 4, where the watchers or the fallen angels came down to earth and decided to mate with the daughters of man and have the Nephilim. And the important part of that, according to Jewish tradition and legend, this occurred on Mount Hermon. And this is very important, folks. Mount Hermon is very important here. And that is going to play a very important role in our talk today, because it's going to come up again. So the fall of the Watchers happened at Mount Hermon. Remember that. So we're going to skip ahead several generations to the time of Jesus. We already see where the fallen angels came down. This happened, a significant rebellion on Mount Hermon, where these fallen angels took this oath. And I'm going to go back. I'm going to jump into and read you a little bit of what happened according to the book of Enoch. It says, let me adjust this. And it came to pass when the children of men had multiplied, and in those days were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters. And the angels, the children of heaven, saw and lusted after them, and said to one another, Come, let us choose us wives among the children of men, and begat us children. And Semijah, who was the leader, said unto them, I fear that ye will not indeed agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of this great sin. And they all answered him, Let us all swear an oath, and all bind ourselves by multiple implications, not to abandon this plan and to do this thing. Then swear they all together, and bound themselves by mutual implications upon it. And they were all 200, and who descended in those days of Jared on the summit of Mount Hermon. And they called it Mount Hermon because they had sworn to bound themselves by multiple implications upon it. And then it goes ahead and lists the leaders, some of the leaders of those angels, or fallen angels. So it says right there that it happened on Mount Hermon. So that's going to play an important role here, the location of this. So we need to remember that. Mount Hermon is very, very important. So we're going to jump ahead to the time of Jesus. So we're going to jump ahead to the book of Matthew. Let me find where I'm going at in Matthew here. We're going to go to Matthew chapter 16, verse 13. And I'm going to be reading out of the NASB 2020. This is Peter's confession. Let me get back in frame for you. Now, when Jesus came upon the region of Caesarea Philippi, when he asked his disciples, Who do people say the Son of Man is? And they said, Some say John the Baptist, and others Elijah, and still others Jeremiah, or one of the other prophets. He said to them, But who yourself say that I am? Simon Peter answered, You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus said to him, Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, because flesh and blood did not reveal this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. And I now say to you, you are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overpower it. And I will give the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. Okay, here's where the confusion lies. We've got to go to some translations here. First, we have to realize they were in the region of Caesarea Philippi. We have to do some geographic location. We have to see where Caesarea Philippi is. And Caesarea Philippi just happens to be at the base of where? Mount Hermon. Let's flip back. What happened to Mount Hermon? That's where the fallen angels descended, according to the book of Enoch. So, this was not a holy place by all means. And if you do the research on what Caesarea Philippi was, it was not a really good place. The Jews avoided Caesarea Philippi because it was a very pagan place. It was the area where most of the most ungodly things happened. It was paganism to the utmost. False gods, and if it could be done, it was done in Caesarea Philippi. So the disciples really didn't want to go there. Most Jews avoided Caesarea Philippi because of what it was, what it stood for. Jews avoided it like the plague because it would have put Sodom and Gomorrah to shame because of the evil, idolatry, godlessness that was in that area. It was just total evil. But yet here was Jesus and his disciples in that area. And next we have to look at, Jesus is asking them, who do you say that I am? And they say, some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, still others say Jeremiah. And he's saying, okay, that's fine, but who do you say I am? And Simon says, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus says, blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, because flesh and blood did not reveal this to you, but my Father in heaven revealed this to you. And I say that you are Peter. Okay, now we've got him calling him Peter, which is Peter. That is English. Nobody used the name Peter in the Bible. Nobody used the name Jesus in the Bible. Nobody used the name Thomas in the Bible. Those are all English names. He named him Petros or Cephas. Cephas was Aramaic. Petros was Greek, or the other way around. Let me just check that real quick. Petros was Greek. Cephas was Aramaic. The translation of that, Petros meant little stone. Remember that, little stone. Basically a pebble. Petra was rock. And so a way of looking at it was Petra meant a huge rock or a cliff. Petros meant a little stone or a pebble. So, he didn't name Peter the rock. He named him Petros. So, would the thinking would be, if he's going to name Peter a pope, would he name him a pebble? Give that some thought. And we're going to continue. And then, and he said, and I say unto you that you are Peter, and that you are Petros, and upon this rock, you are a pebble, and upon this Petra, I will build my church. Let's slow this down a little bit. Verse 18, and I say that you are Petros, and upon this Petra I will build my church. You are a pebble, but on this rock I will build my church. What is this rock that he is talking about? There are two things that he can mean by on this rock I will build my church. Number one, he wasn't talking about Peter. On this rock I will build my church, because he's not going to build his rock on a pebble. So there are two things he could build his rock or his church on. Number one, he's talking about himself being the rock, the cornerstone. Number two, we have to jump forward a little bit. How much farther? We have to jump into the next chapter. What is the next chapter? They were still in this area. They were still in Caesarea Philippi. And what happens in the next chapter? 6 days later, Jesus took him, Peter, and James, and his brother John, and led them up high into the mountains, into the mountain. This mountain, which would, you guessed it, what mountain would it be? Mount Hermon. They took him up onto Mount Hermon. And he was transfigured himself there. This was the transfiguring. This was the transfiguration of Jesus. They went up into the mountain, the transfiguration. And you can read the rest of that story there. So, what was this rock? Was he building his church on himself or around Mount Hermon? My guess was he was mentioning himself. He was building that church on himself. And I can see it now. Let's jump back to chapter 16. Let me get there. Peter said, and I say that you, Peter, upon this rock, I could see him pounding his chest, upon this rock I will build my church. But I think it is more amazing that the transfiguration happened on this same mountain, the same mountaintop where these 200 fallen angels came down and defiled manhood, God's creation. And that just blows my mind. When Satan had this big plan to come down and crush God's plan and stop everything that God had planned for mankind, He didn't look far enough ahead. He was going to come down, defile manhood, and try to stop the seed that was going to redeem mankind. He didn't look far enough ahead. And Jesus went up on top of this mountain where these 200 came down and had this the transfiguration. That's where that took place. That just blows my mind. And I hope you see this too. And other reasons why I don't think Peter was the Pope. Peter was a Jew. He was Hebrew. He was chosen to preach to the Jewish people. If anybody was going to be a pope, it would have been Paul. Paul was chosen to preach to the Gentiles. 9/10 of the New Testament was written by Paul to the Gentile nation. And nowhere in the New Testament, this is another reason I do not believe Peter was the Pope. Nowhere in the New Testament does it show that Peter went to Rome. Another reason, nowhere in the New Testament, in Paul's writings, does it give succession on how to choose a pope. Nowhere does it give anywhere. In Acts, when they had the first council meeting, does it give any instructions on choosing one leader over the whole church? Nowhere. Nowhere does Paul say, I am your one supreme leader. Peter was married. The Catholic Church does not allow a priest to be married, let alone the Pope. So, let's give this some thought, people. There is no way that Peter was the first pope. As much as Peter did for the church, as much as Jesus loved Peter, he loved John more. The Bible states that John was the disciple that Jesus loved most. If any one of the disciples was going to be the Pope, I'm sure it would have been John, because he was the beloved disciple. Peter did great things, but John was the beloved. You can debate me on this all you want. I hope you see where I'm coming from on this. I really do. I hope you see my thinking. Peter cannot have been the first pope. He was a Petros. He was a pebble. It was a rock, but it was a small rock. Christ was the rock, the solid foundation, the cornerstone of our beliefs. Peter was married. He had a mother-in-law. If anybody in the New Testament was going to be a pope, it would have been Paul. Like I said, 9/10 of the Bible or of the New Testament was written by Paul. He gave instructions. Paul refuted things that Peter did. They butted heads a few times. But the church still survives. And thank God. We don't need a pope. We don't need one. We just need to come together. We need to be the one church. We don't need one supreme leader. We have one leader, and his name was Jesus. We just need to follow his words. We need to follow the red letters. We need to follow his words. We need to follow those red letters. We need to read this. We need to read this like a love letter, because that's what it is. It's a love letter to us. Have we lost our first love? Or do we still have our first love? Give this some thought, people. Peter did great things. Paul did great things. All the disciples did great things. Well, Judas kind of messed up a little bit. Judas kind of messed up a lot of bit. But it worked out in the end. If you have prayer requests, send them to us. James is going to be posting. He's going to be doing his message here. He should have already started his message. But we've got a new social media manager. She's doing great things with James's stuff. Hopefully she'll get around to doing some great things with my stuff once I get my site up and running. I hope you enjoyed my message today. Next week, not sure what I'm going to do. It's all in God's hands. I don't have anything to say to you. What I say, God tells me to say. He has great things to say to you. I don't. I just ramble. I just say what God says. So next week, we'll see what God wants me to talk about. I have no clue at this point. He just tells me while I'm driving my truck. So we'll see what he has to say. Going to a harvest party tonight for the church. See those little kids in Halloween costumes. Oh no, Halloween. Ooh, bad. Watch my other video that I posted today. You'll see my thoughts on that. Have some fun, people. Take life seriously, but not too seriously. Love the Lord with all your heart, mind, and soul. Spread the word. Love God. Be great. Pray daily. Ask God. One thing I've been challenged with, I mentioned it before I got booted off of Facebook. If you didn't follow me then, I challenge you. This will change your life. Ask God daily to see things like he sees things. To hear things like he hears things. To do things like he wants you to do things. Things will be different. Until next time, stay blessed and love the Lord.